And welcome back. TREEage is a youth-led climate advocacy group making waves in New York City since 2019. Their mission, educating, mobilizing, and advocating for a more sustainable and equitable future. Joining me today is the Bronx Organizer at TREEage. We've got Matenen Kourouma, and to shed some light on the impactful initiatives as well as the critical issues that they are tackling. Tell me I got the name and the pronunciation correct.
It's Matenen Kourouma.
Thank you so much, Medina. And just want to let you know that we got you here and glad to have you sharing with us today. Talk to us a little bit about the work here because when we talk about climate justice, very important. So, what's your perspective on climate justice?
I think my perspective on climate justice is influenced by where I come from, which is the Bronx. And I think the Bronx has been marked with poverty, institutional racism, and a lot of neglect from the city. So, climate justice means that the power plants in the city shouldn't be placed in my neighborhood. Highways shouldn't cut my neighborhood in half, and we deserve clean air. I think climate justice means that the city really has to reckon with the past of the Bronx, and we have to strive for a cleaner future.
For yourself, obviously, you are an organizer, which means that you're getting people behind you, behind the movement, so per se. When we talk about the movement and getting people behind the movement, what are you telling people?
Well, first, we have to educate people because a lot of it is confusing at first. Because when you want to use the political system to your benefit and you want people to come out for something, they have to understand why they're coming out, why they're leaving their homes. So, first, triage focuses on educating the youth and making sure they know the extent of the climate crisis in the Bronx and the entire five boroughs. And then a lot of it is organizing for um, like I said, a better future and making sure that people know how important the issue is.
And how important do you feel this issue is to you?
I think it's something that intimately affects my daily life. It's something that I've seen growing up, that I've known intimately, and I think climate change is obviously it's going to affect the generations to come, but it's affecting us now. Triage is calling for green, healthy schools. So we want our schools to be electrified and upgraded, and we want New York to be a net zero emissions district by 2040. And students are in schools now. So we want this for 2040, but we also want it now. And that means that we really have to reckon with who's being affected by the issue the most, and a lot of it is.
Yeah. When we talk about young people being involved in social justice, first of all, we give props because there's a lot of young people who are involved in social justice. But when we talk about climate justice, sometimes we don't see the numbers. But you're a person that's actually involved in climate justice, seeing the rise of young people become engaged in climate justice. What's it been taking to get young people more involved, speaking on it, and then also sharing their voice?
I think a lot of young people don't know that they can share their voice and that they're supposed to be sharing their voices. So a lot of what we do is making government accessible so that young people know that their representatives represent them and they're supposed to be able to sit down and have a coffee with the representative because the representative is supposed to know their perspective intimately. So a lot of it is that a lot of people don't know that they have a voice and that they are supposed to be making their voice heard because legislation has to reflect every single student and every single young person in New York City.
You're not just saying that you're doing it. I want to talk about some statistics that I have here. I know 150 students actually went to rally for climate justice in Albany during the legislative session. You've also had 19 climate focused lobbying visits connecting members with their state legislatures. That experience itself of tackling Albany and dealing with all that Albany has to handle, not an easy one, but yet and still you guys were able to navigate it, huh?
I think that when it comes to legislation and getting young people to kind of grow up, um, a lot of it is knowing that they don't have all the answers. We don't run the government. We don't have all of the intricacies of the system, but we know that for the system to work, our voices have to be heard. And I think that's why a lot of people wanted to go up to Albany, and they knew that if they went up, they would be doing something for themselves and doing something for the entire community that they come from.
Yeah. I know there's some work that's being done right now, and that work is centered on 100,000 climate jobs. And I want to talk a little bit about this here because creating an equitable recovery for New York City, creating 100,000 climate jobs for frontline communities of color. And when we have something such as that, uh, 100,000 climate jobs, if they are created, talk to me about what that would mean and what does that mean to you?
So the climate jobs and justice package means that we're creating a roadmap for the entire United States. It means that New York City is going to set the precedent for what the rest of the nation could be. And it means that we need to combat inequity by building clean energy for all, creating union jobs, and addressing the climate crisis adequately by holding polluters accountable. So we have had big wins where we've passed the Build Public Renewable Act, which will allow New York State to build publicly owned renewable energy. And we've also created the Climate Action Fund, which will give us the money and the mechanism that will allow the mayor and the state and everybody to put their money where their mouth is.
So tell me about your political goals, if you will, in this season. What do you want to see accomplished, and what do you want us to pay attention
So this season, we want green, healthy schools. We want New oldest and most polluting buildings to be remodeled and reworked. We want 500 schools to be electrified, and we want a net zero school district by 2040.
and how optimistic are you that we can see able to see this in the years to come?
I think it's not just about optimism. It's about knowing that these changes will happen no matter what, because the people who are fighting now are not going to stop fighting until it happens. And it's about pushing the city and pushing the mayor to really focus on the people who matter. So, with Green Healthy Schools, we know that the mayor has cut billions of dollars from our DOE public schools. Libraries are already shut down on Sundays, and it just means that for our future, we need to be optimistic because we have a mayor that doesn't seem to care. So that means we need to keep pushing for this because it's what matters.
Yeah. And so for you, as you're making your push and you're letting people know a little bit more about climate justice, what they need to know about climate change, what's it been like having conversations with other young people about this?
I think what it's looked like is a lot of pessimism because we know what we're up against. We know that we're up against money and profit and fossil fuels, which has driven our nation for centuries and has caused us to become as polluted as we are today. So a lot of it is that people are not looking for the happy future, but because they don't know the extent of the work that's being done, that has been done. So I think that young people are pessimistic, but I think they are ready. And I think that they know that something has to be done. And if nothing is done, the planet will suffer because of it.
So, Bettina, how do people join in on the goals? Right, we know that they're out there. We know what you're trying to accomplish. How does the public play a part in partnering with you to get this across the finish line?
I think the public really has to listen to student voices because in the government, we see that a lot of the people who are representing us are over 30, 40, 50 years old. So we need the public to hear us and take us seriously. Just because we're young doesn't mean we don't know what we're saying, doesn't mean we don't have voices and mean to use them. So the public needs to first educate themselves and then really look to the people who are being affected so that we can hear and we can learn from each other.
For yourself, when did the light go on for you to say, listen, this is something I really believe and I'm becoming passionate about? When did the light go on for you to say, I want to become an organizer?
I think the light went on when I learned that where I come from, District 15 is the poorest congressional district in the entire United States. And when I looked at how even the amount of green space we have, the amount of highways, the asthma rates are all affected by this one issue, and it all comes together in this sense of like intersectionality. And I think seeing that and then seeing the effects, like being able to look at them and look at the statistics, but also walk outside and see the lack of green space and how we're being treated. That's what really pushed me to become an organizer.
So, what do you think is next that we need to be keeping our eyes on, particularly around this time of year?
I think around this time of year, keep an eye out for the coalitions who are working towards this, and keep an eye out for the block parties that we are planning. We actually have one next month on January 27th at Sonia Sotomayor Community Center. And we're working in coalition with a bunch of environmental justice networks like the Point CDC, South Bronx Unite, the Bronx River Alliance. And I think look out for the fact that like this work never stops, no matter the time of year. And that's why we can have a block party in the middle of winter, because people will come out and people care.
For you, what's the passion? Where's the passion come from?
I think it comes from being from the Bronx and knowing that my perspective is unique, because a lot of people look down on the Bronx and they don't understand what it's like growing up here and what it's like to kind of have a very specific experience, being from New York, which is supposed to be the land of opportunity, and not having that opportunity at your hands. So the passion comes from knowing that there are people around me who are just worried about getting by, but I have the chance to speak for them, and I have the chance to use what I know about my experience to bring a new perspective to the table.
And what does a greener New York mean for you?
A greener New York is one where the mayor can say that he will invest in um, climate justice, that he will to come out outrightly and say that he cares about the future of New Yorkers, and he cares about building public renewable energy, creating green schools, passing the climate jobs and justice package, enforcing local law 97. These are all things that he has never explicitly said. And a new New York needs to come from the people who represent us, and it needs to come from everybody.
And so, for people who want more information, how do they go about finding out more information, particularly about the organization?
So you can go to our website, which is triageteam.org, or you can go to our Instagram, which is where we keep all of our events, our past events. You can see all of the actions we've done in the past and what we're moving towards. Or you can contact me. My email is always open, bronx at triageteam.org, and I'm willing to give out any information you need to know to join this fight and to show that you care about a just and clean New York.
Yeah. And so, as we are starting a new year, how optimistic are you that we're going to see some great change in this area?
I'm optimistic because I've met the people who have a stake in this. I've met the students, and I know that they care. They really, really care. And obviously, it's going to take more than that. But we know that if people really put their minds to it, we can make things happen, and we've already made things happen.
Well, I want to let you know your voice is already carrying. I mean, you really have made a strong statement today, particularly when it talks about climate justice and letting us know that young people are not just on the sideline, but literally at the forefront, making their voice heard and pushing even electeds and the public to be able to take advantage of speaking up and speaking out for climate justice. Matita, thank you so much for being with us.
Thank you so much for having me, Darren. I hope you have a wonderful day.
Oh, you too, you too. Listen, take a quick break. Got more open, I should say not open, but social justice coming up right after this.